To be anointed means to be authorized to do whatever you are doing. To be anointed means to be empowered to do whatever it is you are doing. Are we together? To anoint means to legitimize an operation, so that both the earth and the realm of the spirit no longer considers you to do it illegally. So when the Bible talks about being anointed, it is an ordination. That really is the essence of ordination, to legitimize an operation. Are we together now? So in its purest form, the anointing has nothing to do with oil. You see, most times, and now sadly, when believers don't have the requisite spiritual knowledge and we get them into all these rituals of oil and the rest, it almost becomes witchcraft sometimes. All of those mediums only find their credence if and when the believer has an understanding of what he is doing. To be anointed has nothing to do with oil necessarily. To be anointed has nothing to do with a handkerchief, a mantle, some medium. I'm not saying those things are wrong, but the essence of being anointed is to empower you to do or to become, and then to legitimize your operation. Are we together? What is the anointing? The anointing is God's ability. Please write it down. You have to know the owner of that ability. It matters to know that the ability belongs to God. The anointing is not just ability. The anointing is God's ability. Because there are many other kinds of abilities routed through. There are abilities that seem to come from demons and come from wherever. But God's ability at work in a human or material vessel. Please write it down. The anointing is God's ability at work in a human or material vessel to accomplish his purposes and to produce extraordinary results. I'll take it again. The anointing is God's ability at work in a human or material vessel to accomplish his purposes and to produce extraordinary results. So the ability belongs to God, even whilst we take advantage of that ability. God's ability at work in a human vessel or any material vessel. And then the intent, the goal of that anointing is to empower and to help that individual to accomplish God's purposes and then to produce extraordinary results. A very fair definition of the anointing. So immediately that tells you that that empowerment, that legitimization comes from God and belongs to him. Now the challenge with many people is when because of the seeming autonomy and liberty that happens in the presence of the anointing, you find out that people misuse the anointing because I can walk in the flesh. I may want to make a name for myself right now. And I can tell you there's someone here, the power of God will come on, and you will be shocked to see that it will happen. But you will have to vet it from the lens of God's desire to know whether he was the one who directed that or it was just flesh. Are you seeing that now? Just because it happened did not necessarily mean it accomplished the purposes of God. This is where the abuse of the anointing comes. When I become a recipient of the anointing, it is within my power to misuse it. Are we together? And many sadly have misused the anointing for the gratification of the flesh. Many have misused the anointing for financial gains. Many have misused the anointing for all kinds of reasons. So the anointing is God's ability at work in a human or a material vessel to accomplish his purposes and to produce extraordinary or supernatural results.